Hello everybody and welcome to my little studio in Germany. I'm going to talk about wavetable synthesis again, but today I'm going to focus on one plugin, Xfer Records Serum, and I'm going to show 3 interesting features that you can only find in Serum as far as I know, at least in the combination of the 3 features. The first feature is image import, so you can just drag and drop an image into your wavetable window here, and Serum will read it as a wavetable. The second feature is the formulas, math formulas you have here in your wavetable editor. You can just enter it here, or if you save it in a text file, you can access them here, your user singles and multis and the factory singles and multis. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these formulas, but as you can imagine, maybe if you look at the descriptions, this can get very complicated very fast. And I'm just going to present some basic knowledge, basic information about it in this quick tutorial. So this is the second feature. The third feature is LFO curve point modulation, which means that you can actually modulate the position of single points that make up your LFO curves in Serum. And this is also a very interesting feature. I personally have been waiting for it a long time before it was introduced in Serum, and I was very happy, and still I'm very happy that we have this feature. So all 3 features, I think, are only to be found in Serum, at least in this combination. And yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about each one today. Maybe I'm going to make some follow-up videos at some point in which I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into these features, but especially the formulas and maybe also image synthesis or image import. But LFO point modulation, I think, is very basic, and I hope you're going to understand a little bit about all 3 of these features today. If you're a beginner, maybe start with the first 2 parts in this series on wavetable synthesizers. If you're an advanced user of wavetable synthesizers in general, but don't know much about Serum or you haven't used these features, then you are you're perfect to watch this video right now. If you're a professional and know about these features, maybe I'm not telling you much today because I'm not going to go into too much detail. But let's start with it. The first feature is the image import. So here you have your wavetable display, the 3D display. Here's the 2D display of a single waveform. Let's just paint a basic waveform. So we have something in the display before I'm going to import the wavetables. Well, maybe better like this. So do some crossfading. And here you see wavetable position is morphing from the saw wave to the sine wave. Yeah, of course, you can do lots of interesting modulation by putting LFOs or envelopes on this position knob. And you also have the additional morph parameter here. But today I'm just going to focus on the import of interesting images. And I'm just going to start with a simple gradient. And here, as soon as you drag it and hover over the wavetable display, you see import PNG image, pixel luminance maps to amplitude. So basically, this means that white, you get an amplitude of 1, and black, you get an amplitude of -1. As you can see here, the upper left corner, it's black. So amplitude of -1. In the lower right corner, it's white, so you get an amplitude of +1. Let's just quickly look how it sounds. Yeah, of course, this is just like a single saw wave shifted a little bit. Of course, you can now process the wave you got. For instance, you can remove the fundamental. Or do some more interesting processing at this point. But you can start with whatever image you have, as long as it's in PNG format. I think maybe BMP2, but JPEG it doesn't like to read. And you can see I've already some kind of smoothing applied here. So here we have a simple gradient. It's very smooth. But here I just have some simple drawing. And you see the black parts have an amplitude of 0, and then you have some little blur on the side, so you get a smooth transition. And the white parts have an amplitude of +0. So of course you can import all kinds of black, white, gray images. You can do something like that with your name, or in this case, a part of your name. And you see it translates pretty well on the wavetable display. You actually really see the image here when it's black and white. Of course, here the black parts are amplitude -0, again with some blur. If you import this, there's this black image with some white scribbles on it. And you see when the image is completely black, like here, all these patches, you get an amplitude of -0, at least if it's really completely black. So you don't hear much. We hear a little amplitude blip in the beginning, but no tail at all. But here, depending on what is scribbled on your image, you can hear some changing sounds. And of course, every line, as you can see here, every line in your image, depending on your image size, Serum reads it with 256 wavetables in total. So if your image size is higher than 256 pixels, it will decrease the size a little bit or interpret multiple lines at the same time. But if it's exactly 256 times 256, so every line in your image will be one waveform. So if you scan through with this, you see here scribbles, and then here, this is where the meta writing starts. So you see that the translation is pretty nice. And as I said, if you add some blur, you get some smooth transition at the edges. If you take completely black and white image and have 256 times 256, you get a very sharp edges. Let's try another one. This is very similar to this one. So I see really all the images are written very well, but as you can see, this is not completely black. It has some kind of green color. So the amplitude is not really -1, even in the patches where you have complete color, because it really reads black as -1 and white as +1, and all colors or gray shades in between are just read in based on luminance. Of course, you can also import pictures such as this. And here you see the edges are dark, really black. Here you get to -1 or nearly -1. And in the middle, where you have some brighter parts of the image, there you have the waveform shows an amplitude of +1 or closer to +1. Yeah, depending on what you want to do with your sound design. Of course, sometimes you want sharp contrast transitions, you want noisy waveforms at one point and sine-like waveforms at another point. And sometimes you would just want a simple, like small deviations in timbre maybe, or in tone. And yeah, depending on how much you blur your image and what image you generate, you can really get all kinds of waveforms. Let's try this too. There you have some little spikes. This is mostly based on that the image is much bigger and Serum reads multiple lines and columns, so to speak, for one sample in a waveform. So at any one point in waveform, you have multiple pixels in your image. So I guess it generates an average. Here another one. This is a little bit more clearer, but also with lots of tiny spikes. Yeah, as you can imagine, you can try out a lot of stuff and like modify images in your image editor of choice, such as like GIMP or Photoshop. And you can do some stuff that is very hard to do with painting when you go into the editor and want to paint single waveforms and then warp in between. You can also do lots of things, but image editors have some options that are, I will not say like superior, or maybe more sophisticated as a wavetable editor. But this wavetable editor is very sophisticated by itself. So it's just like a different kind of processing of your wavetable that you can do in image editors. And in some cases, it can be very interesting and can lead to interesting results. But of course, I'm just putting some images in here to show how it translates. Of course, you can also just like when you think, I like some of that stuff, but I don't like the sharp contrasts, you can just go in and remove multi-selection here and multi-selection maybe from here to here. Yeah, the first multi-selection was a little bit bad. Should have selected something else. Oh, maybe let's go back and do it. Let's start with maybe here. Go into the middle and delete this stuff all the way up to here and all the way no, up to here maybe. Let's delete this end. You can also remove selector to end. Don't have to really select the end or beginning points. So now we have 3, I would say, very noisy wavetables. Let's do a spectral morph. And also do some normalization, so we see it a little bit nicer here. Let's try it out now. Maybe shift an octave down. And now you see the interesting noisy pattern that you get from your image import translates very nicely to a wavetable when you delete some frames in between, because you don't have all the little peaks for every waveform that sound a little bit chaotic, which of course can also be nice depending on what you want to do. But you get a smooth transition from one noisy wavetable to the next one. Now with crossfading, it's like this. And with spectral morphing, it sounds like this. Yeah, so you can see image import is very interesting. You can just scribble something in some paint program, or can use a photography that you made and just import it here, drop it here. Serum generates your wavetables. Oh, this is not bad. Let's make some, try it with an LFO modulation. Yeah, this is very interesting. Not a bad sound. You could work with something like that. And here, like this. This doesn't look so nice. A little bit noisy here because of the mirror in the image and all this stuff. So of course you could go into your image editor, edit all this out if you like. So you only have this. Sometimes it's also good if you have an interesting picture and you just paint some white or black lines over it. So you have some clear evolution, so to speak, development in the wavetable that you get. Yeah, this is extremely noisy. But of course you can do the same thing as before. Delete some wavetables in between, maybe like that. And like that. And let's do some morphing. Not all. Yeah, let's try this. Yeah, I think you get the idea. If you put in real photographies or more complicated images, you often get very noisy stuff like here. But delete some frames if you like, some tonal or timbre changes between noisy wavetables, and you can work with this very well. But of course, you can also go into your image editor and put in some nice, like this, gradients, or some lines like this, clear lines, clear developments over the wavetable. And then go ahead, import, just drag and drop it into the wavetable display and go crazy with all your processing options. We'll talk about these in a second. Of course, you can also use this in combination with your image imports. But there's one more thing I want to address, which is here. If you import PNG with a transparent background, you don't get like amplitude. You get amplitude of -1 for the transparent parts. But if it's colorful like that, you don't get a clear contrast because, of course, all the black parts or the darker parts will also have a low amplitude. So if you drop in transparent or PNG with a transparent background and it's black or very dark, let's try this. And we have a little bit here, there it's not completely dark, the image, but I think you get the idea. Transparent background and black painting on top of it results in a wavetable with waveforms around -1. So it's better if you use something with a transparent background. You can see it so well here, and you can't see it at all in the Windows Explorer because the background is white. But here I just inverted the picture so it's white. Import it, and you see this works very well. All the white parts have amplitude close to +1, and the transparent parts, like all the black parts in an image, have an amplitude of -1. So amplitude is for every sample in this waveform. Yeah, that's basically it for image imports. Let's go ahead to the wavetable editor and specifically the multi-singles and user singles and multis for formulas for processing. So for instance here, let's try the first one. This is a multi, so it means it will affect all the wavetables in your table, all the waveforms in your table. Like this. And this is just like it's called icon as kick drum. Here you see the formula. And this is just, so we have to imagine the kick drum plays from here. We start with a noisy transient. Then you go over to a sine saw wave-like tail of the sound, and you fade it out. Let's look at it here in the 3D editor. Here, this is the transient part, so to speak, and here it fades out. Of course, here it's better to just apply an envelope to this, or maybe let's take envelope 2 and put it over here. Oh no, I'm wrong. Like this goes up here and then it fades down. If you want a short transient, of course you can do it like that. Of course, should be a little bit lower. Yeah, maybe with some processing, you can build a nice kick drum from it. But this is just a starting point, just your basic wavetable. Here, this is a transition from sine to, from saw to sine. I find an interesting transition. See here, it has some, let's listen to it. Some interesting character to it. Or maybe lo-fi triangles. Yeah, this goes from a triangle wave to a very, very bit reduced triangle wave, if you want to call it like that. let's do this again. Yeah, as you can see, there are lots of formulas here in the factory folder. But the interesting thing about it is you can also put your own formulas here into your user folder. So everything you can come up with mathematically, you can just translate it into the type of formula that Serum accepts. And you can paste it into the document that makes up your user multis and user singles. And yeah, you are ready to go to use it for every wavetable, or if it's a single, use a single for every waveform that you want to modify. Let's try here, squarify. Oh, it's already squarified. We add harmonic. And if you look here at the FFT bins, you see the first harmonic went from 25 to 50 now. Of course, you're only here at the first waveform, so I should probably turn the LFO back down. What? Yeah, stay down. Why does this always turn up? I think I went. Ah, okay, yeah. When you come with your mouse here, the kind of reacts to your mod assignment. So I'm just going to remove this for a sec. So first you had a first harmonic that was over 50%, so it's a deeper tone. Then I changed it to 25, sounds like that. 50 and high harmonic. What is this? Yeah. I think displays your wavetable independent of your probably can switch that off somehow, but I'm not sure how. But yeah, anyway, you see with the single processes here, you can affect single waveforms. With the user multis, you can affect all the waveforms. So now I put the first harmonic in all the waveforms to 50%, and you see goes through to the last waveform. Everywhere the harmonics are now 50%. If I change it back, oh, let's try the third harmonic to 100% here. You see it changes the last waveform. And of course you can fade in between if you would like to do that. Multi selection, morph, spectrum. Oh, I think I just clipped into the window. Yeah, like this. And you have a nice, yeah, here we have to assign it. Yeah, some interesting sound evolution, so to speak, from harder wave to a like cleaner scalar wave, cleaner sine-like wave. Yeah, now I should probably show you how to actually change your formulas. So let's look into the factory formulas first. You see here in the first square brackets, you have the formula. In the second square brackets, you have the name. And look here, the formula shows up here when you use something, and the name shows up when you call up the menu. So here you can put in stuff that affects single waveforms. It's just a saw, for instance, because the X. So this is just like X equals Y. So for every sample that you progress in your waveform, here from left to right, from left to right, X also increases. It's just X, but that stands for Y equals X, or X equals Y. So for every sample that you progress here from left to right, the amplitude goes up from -1 to +1. So step 1 to sample 2, it goes up, goes up, goes up, goes up, and so you get a square wave. Yeah, as I said, this is just for one waveform. You can just put an set equals, I think, before processing, and you will apply it to the whole table. So if you look again at this, you have a set here. As soon as you have a set stands for the number of your waveform here. So from the first waveform to the last, I think the coding is like -1 to 1. So these are your factory multis, and you see everywhere in all these multis, if you have a set, to denotate the position of the waveform that is processed in the wavetable. If you go into your factory singles, you don't have a set, or you shouldn't have a set, because this only processes one waveform. And you see here process, this is squarify, process, squarify, alt. The other ones generate completely new waveforms. These two are just processing what you already have in a waveform. And as you can see here, with equations like this one or formulas like this one, can get pretty complicated if you're a mathematician or you have some interest in math. I think you will have a lot of fun with the formula parser here. And let's just look at some different kinds of processing that I have here in my user tables. You also have a squarify for with different percentages. So for instance, if you go here, you have, it's like a 90% squarify. This is just 10%, so you just get this little tilt. I can add harmonics, or we can look at the FFT bins, or reduce harmonics in this case to 25%. You can subtract harmonics. So this shouldn't be called add, this should be called set to 25, set to 100, and so on. Because if you do it 2 times, oh no, it's really add. Oh my god, I'm wrong. But here this sets it to 25. Yeah, I think that at 100% that actually adds. I have to look at the formulas that I put in there. 75 also seems to add. But the other two seem to set it to 25 and 50%. But here, as you can see, this is just some squarify and reduction. Here, these are all processors. These are processing existing waveforms. And these first four, it's just some simple saws, a very sharp saw. Maybe let's init the patch and have some fun with saws. A very sharp saw, normal saw. Well, don't need all of these, just take 3. And a very dull saw that's very close to like a sine wave. So let's play this again. You see we don't apply morphing, we didn't apply morphing. Very sharp, basic saw, sine line. Yeah, so you can really do incredible different kinds of processing and generation here. But of course, either you copy the formulas from some place, such as the Xfer Records forums, the forum for Serum especially. There you can find lots of user formulas that you can use. Just copy them into your formulas multi. If it's for processing or generating complete wave tables, then you usually have a set in there. Or copy them into this text document, a formula user singles. There you usually don't have a set. If you have a set, it's processing all. So yeah, you have processing, and the first few I showed you for generating source. So generating or processing single waveforms here, or in the factory singles, and processing or generating multiple waveforms here. I think in all factory formulas you have the processing prefix here, so you know that these formulas process existing waveforms, and all the other formulas generate new waveforms. Or as I said, in the multis, these generate complete wavetables. In the singles, these generate single waveforms. So something like this or like this. And on the other hand, all these formulas, they process the complete wavetable. So no matter if you have 2 or 1 or 256 waveforms in your wavetable, the multi-processors here will process all of them, and the generators over here will generate a complete wavetable. Oh, in this case, I just see these are all processors. I did not use correct naming convention for these. So my user multis are actually all processors. Remember this? Perfect out octaves. Yeah, this generates something. But most of them are processors. And here also all this stuff is all processing in my singles. Only these are generators. But in the Serum factory formulas, I think all these are named correctly. So if it's just a processor, you will have the proc prefix. Yeah, as you can imagine, this can get incredibly complicated. So maybe at some point I will make another tutorial just for formulas. But today I'm just gonna leave it at that. And here you can see some of the basic conventions that you can use in the formula parser that can give you like a first idea how to use it. So basically Wx for current time value. I think W is from 0 to 1, X from -1 to 1, same for Y and Z. That's the current table number. Also, I think z is from -1 to 1 and y from 0 to 1. But I might get confused these two, but these always adhere to your table number. If you put a z equals in front of a processing formula, it tells Serum to process all frames, all waveforms of a wavetable. If you have a cell inside of your formula, it only applies to your selected waveform or selected waveforms. In is the old wavetable sample value, so the old waveform. If you process a complete waveform, in always tells Serum this is the old value, so to speak, and it will process it according to your formula. Q denotes FFT bins. P the phases. Can also have some fun with phases and FFT bins in there. Maybe I show you something with the remove fundamental, for instance. That was our first harmonic, third harmonic here. If you use that, you see that's your FFT bins, and when you scroll over here, you see it's 512 FFT bins. There's something else with FFT bins. Let me check. Yeah, I think mostly in my limited collection that I have right now on my new machine, it's add and reduce harmonics. These directly are based on the FFT bins. Yeah, and rand generates a random number. Then you can also use basic functions, sinus, cosinus, tangent, logarithms, exponential function, square root, minimum and maximum, and logical operators here, and basic math operators, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and an exponent. So yeah, this is all these two greater or equal, less or equal, not equal, equal, greater, and less. So yeah, as you can imagine, you can really do crazy formulas. If it makes sense for what you hear when it's finished is another question, but you can do all kinds of math operations here in Serum. And of course, this is a big advantage over other wavetable synthesizers, even over synthesizers that have extensive wavetable editors. Yeah, now on to my third topic that I want to talk about. This will be very quick. It's just a very nice feature that you don't find often, which is called LFO curve point modulation. And this means if you have your LFO, for instance, like this, put another point here, maybe like this. And put it here, other way around. Oh. It's a little bit fast. Yeah, I don't like this wavetable at all. Let's do something else. Maybe just use source sine reveal. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, now you see LFO2. And when you click on LFO1 and then drag and hold LFO2, and then hover over a point in your LFO curve, you see that you get these X and Y values or options here. And you can drop LFO2 or some other envelope LFO here on X, for instance. And this creates a new assignment in the matrix for LFO2. And you see here, destination is LFO bus 2. So this is like telling telling the modulator that this curve point will be modulated. This curve point will be modulated based on the value coming out currently of LFO2. Let's make this both sides and go back here, and you see this is the modulation. It goes into positive and negative values. And let's assign LFO3 to the Y value. Maybe let's delete this so it's a little bit clearer. So LFO3 is now assigned to the Y value of this point, and LFO2 is assigned to the X value. And you see here, LFO bus 1, LFO bus 2, that's just what you clicked first for curve point modulation. So let's make this two-sided, all the way, bring it all the way up, and put it here in the middle. So now you see very nicely the modulation. And let's just make something very simple. Make this a little bit higher frequency. And you see, without changing the length or speed of LFO1, in many synthesizers you can of course modulate the speed of LFO1 with LFO2, but here in Serum you can just modulate the shape very nicely with these LFO points. Let's make this a little bit slower. And let's go back here. And maybe remove some of the tables and apply some processing or some basic painting. That can also be fun over here. And this we leave as a basic sine wave. You can also introduce some noise. And do another spectral morphing. Now let's listen to it again. And you see, based on LFO2, this point, so at this point, yeah, this is moving from left to right. And at the same time, based on the frequency and shape of LFO3, this point is moving up and down. As you can imagine, stuff like that can be very, very nice for very long pads, pad sounds, or like when you have, if you want to make complex wobble sounds, it's very easy to do with something like that. Yeah, that's basically it for LFO point modulation. Of course, you can do it for another LFO and for, oh, that was wrong. Yeah, like that. Turn it all the way up, make it two-sided. And now you see I put it on Y for my second curve point. So this naming is just which curve point dimension you assign first. So if you assign X first, it says LFO bus 1, but if you assign Y first, it also says LFO bus 1. So this doesn't tell you much. You have to recall or check. You can check it very simply by just moving the slider, so you see which modulation is getting bigger and smaller. Yeah, this is just based on the order in which you assign the modulators to the LFO points. this very fast. Yeah, you see, you can get vibrating effects, wobble-like effects, or very slow changes that can make a sound more interesting when you play it very often, or when it's a very, very long note or something like that. Or of course for like dubstep-like or drum bass-like sounds, this can also be very, very nice. Let's make it a little bit deeper here. Yeah, to make some more changes. Yeah, and you see we are just using one oscillator, no filter, absolutely no effect, not even the second oscillator in Serum or one of these support oscillators. It's just really one very fast generated wavetable. We painted some over the saw wave here, put a simple sine wave in the second position, and we already with a little bit of curve point modulation, you already have an interesting sound. So you might think, why do I need curve point modulation? I can make all kinds of interesting modulations just by combining all the 8 LFOs here in Serum, for instance, or in a synth such as Vital. But I would say, at least if you can do the same sound, which is of course possible, but it's much more easy because you see the original curve points here. You see the play position by the curve, and you really see the modulation that the other oscillators apply on these curve points in this field. And in my opinion, this is really a great way to do more organic or in general interesting sounds. Of course, you can just layer different oscillators on top of each other, but it's usually it's a little bit different. You can negate some part of this curve and add to it and so on. But here you can really just tell the first LFO how to behave and how the different curve points should change their behavior over time. And yeah, this is something that opens up a lot of interesting sound design options, especially if you're more like a visual person. You don't want to plan ahead how all these different oscillators affect each other, how they interact, and what the end result is. If you apply 1, 2, 3, 4, all to wavetable position 2 with different tempos and waveforms, of course, you can make complicated sounds, but you also have a complicated matrix like you have now, and you don't have this nice display where you really see how everything changes based on the waveform that you see in your first main oscillator. Yeah, so I hope if you're a beginner, you learn some new things about wavetable synthesis in Serum. If you're advanced, maybe you also learned 1 or 2 new features. And next time, I think I'm going to talk about the import options in another wavetable synth turned to Icarus, which also has a great wavetable editor. But in my opinion, it has better import options. And I'm going to show you some of the options, gonna compare the sound for some vocal samples and maybe some other samples. And yeah, so after that, I think I will make some videos about wavetable synthesizers that don't feature wavetable editors, to show you what you can do with morphing options and especially with parallel morphing. So it's interesting, all Serum and Icarus, in my opinion, these 2 synthesizers have the best wavetable editing options. Both these synthesizers only have one morphing parameter. Icarus has some other stuff, such as drive knobs for the filters, and also here, like stuff you can do. I know this here, it's like hypersaw, unison, autochord, and so on. But still, this, in my opinion, is the only morph option you get. It has a lot of morph options, but you can only apply one at a time. Of course, you can combine it with some interesting filter shape. Icarus has lots of very interesting filters and similar stuff like equalizer nodes here in the filter section. And you can use here this drive parameter, which is pretty awesome. In Icarus, you have bit crush, rectify, saturate. So it's not a simple drive, it's really a complex distortion unit in every filter. But still, all these great morphing options you can not use in parallel with each other. You can, of course, use it and then burn down the wavetable and use another option, but that's not the same. Like in the synths such as Arranger, you have some basic waveform morphing that you can use in parallel with each other, and same in Pigments, Falcon, and Wavetable. Yeah, and then I'm show something about Metasounds Wavetable, which is the more or less occasion for this Wavetable series I'm doing, that we have a new Wavetable oscillator in Metasounds. And after that, I'm going to compare all the Wavetable sounds I've been talking about, the plugins, as well as Unreal Engine Metasounds. And just if someone is wondering in which wavetabler is for you, or what should I learn first, or what are the advantages and disadvantages. And yeah, I think this will be the aim of all this wavetable series that I'm doing right now, just to give a quick comparison about all of these. But yeah, thank you for listening, and see you next time.